April 5th, 2021 meeting of the Planning Commission Working Group to order. Ms. Cook, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. O'Connor?
I'm here.
Mr. O'Connor is an at-large member. Ms. Leverins?
Here.
Ms. Leverins is also an at-large member. Mr. Haldeman?
Here.
Mr. Haldeman represents the Berkeley District. Mr. Polster?
Here.
Mr. Polster represents the Jamestown District. Dr. Rose?
Here.
Dr. Rose represents the Roberts District. Ms. Null?
Present.
Ms. Null represents the Stonehouse District. Mr. Kropp?
Here.
Mr. Kropp represents the Powhatan District and, represents the Powhatan District. Ms. Wortman? I believe we have a quorum. Thank you.
Great, thank you. As a reminder, please use the hand raise function. I'll try to do as good a job of recognizing it as Rich did, but I'll probably miss a couple of times. So,
Oh, believe me, I missed plenty, Jack. But thank you for that. Thank you for that anyway.
Just give me a shout out if I happen to pass you by.
I think Jenny just joined us.
Oh, hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny.
Sorry
Welcome.
for being tardy.
Not a problem. We'll move on to the resolution for virtual meeting. You all have a copy of it in your packet. On September 8th, 2020, the board readopted the continuity of government ordinance, which under certain circumstances permits this committee to conduct today's meeting by electronic or telephonic means without a quorum of members physically present. May I please have a motion for adoption of that resolution?
So moved, Barbara.
Thank you, Barbara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
As you know, we do not have a public comment period at these meetings, but we do accept public comments written through email or letters. Ms. Cook, did we receive any public comments?
No, we did not. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And would you please introduce the staff and consultants?
Yes, thanks very much. I am Ellen Cook, Principal Planner, and joining me today from James City County are Tammy Rosario, Jose Hibero, John Reisinger, Terry Costello, and Alex Berg. We did want to quickly note that while we would usually have Julie Northcott Wilson here to help answer your Parks and Recreation questions, sadly, Julie is no longer with the county, but we are extremely grateful for all she has contributed to this effort and wish her well.
Yeah, amen to
also
that.
Also joining us are our partners in this comprehensive plan update, our consultants Vlad Gavrilovic and Todd Gordon from EPRPC and Leanne King from Clarion Associates. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Welcome, everybody. May I please have with regard to the minutes of January 5th, which was in your packet, are there any additions or corrections?
This is Rich. Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Rich.
Yep.
All in favor, please?
Aye.
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 All righty. We'll move on to the population chapter. Ms. Ribeiro or Mr. Reisinger?
Good afternoon to the working group. My name is John Reisinger and I work as a planner in the Community Development Department. With me tonight is Jose Ribeiro, also a planner, and together we will be presenting the population chapter. Next slide. Items for discussion this afternoon include revisions to the technical report and technical appendix, a summary document regarding youth age cohort projections, the results from the third round of community engagement, and revisions to the GSAs. Next slide. Revisions to the technical report included grammatical changes, the addition of a section regarding the working age population, the addition of language to acknowledge the complexities of population forecasts, the addition of a section for community guidance. The technical appendix has also been revised with the addition of a map and data table for the county's election districts. Next slide. A summary document comparing the methodologies of different youth age cohort projections was included as an informational resource. The technical report for the population chapter contains age distribution projections from Weldon Cooper, which are for all ages of the county's population. An excerpt of that data was further used to discuss the youth population in the report. For WJCC schools, they use the Future Think enrollment projections, which are specific to the public school enrollment. And finally, for the fiscal impact model, those projections are considering only the impact of growth and should not replace departmental specific analysis. Next slide. For the third round of community engagement, the policies and action questionnaire included questions for related to quality of life amenities such as walking and biking facilities, which did receive consistent support from respondents. Additionally, when asked to hypothetically allocate resources between the 5 public input themes, expanding and creating new quality of life amenities ranked third at 21.6%. Next slide. Following the discussion at our last meeting in January, staff has revised PN 4.7 to include the principle of universal design as a strategy to promote aging in place. Next slide. That brings us to the end of the presentation portion of our discussion tonight. Before we open the floor for comments and discussion, staff did want to follow up on the additional comments and revisions received from the working group prior to today's meeting. Since this is the last meeting where the population chapter will be discussed individually, staff is hoping to receive affirmation from the working group for the suggested changes. If it is amenable to the working group, staff will go through a list of comments so the PCWG can discuss and vote on the suggested changes. And if there's no objection to that approach, we can begin now.
That would be great. Go right ahead. Thanks, John.
Thank you. So with Mr. Haldeman's and Ms. Wertman's comments, we did receive a number of those which were staff had found to be of grammatical formatting or for other clarification purposes. And we'd like to propose that we discuss those as a group. If the working group didn't have any objections to those, if you had a chance to read them, then we could have a vote to move those changes forward.
So you're referring to mine and Ms. Wertman's
Correct.
comments?
There are parts of those, of the comments he submitted that we'll be discussing separately,
Okay.
but for the ones that were more of a high level discussion, we think we can handle those as one group.
Okay. Which ones are you proposing we do as a group, though? I didn't.
There is quite a list, but a number of those, again, grammatical.
Does staff accept all the grammatical changes that we made?
Right, yeah, we would be proposing to move those forward as.
Oh, okay, great. I'm sorry for being so slow. I think that's a great way to proceed. Does anybody have any
Julie,
comments on?
let me make a motion that we go ahead and approve all the grammatical and formatting changes.
Great, thank you. Do we need a roll call vote for that, Ms. Cook, or?
No.
Okay. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Great. Back to you, John.
Great, thank you. We also received some comments for a number of the graphics included in the technical report, specific to the year references for the data. Staff thinks for a number of those, they are listed as the 5-year ACS estimates with dates listed from 2014 to 2018. We did want to clarify that those would be the ACS 2018 data. And so we'll be looking to make sure that those are consistent with the other chapters moving forward. So no necessarily specific changes there, but it is something that we'll be looking into. For figure P6 and P7, and those are for the educational attainment charts or graphs. We received a comment that we didn't include any suggestion for, or any language related to the high school diploma ratio. Staff would be proposing to add additional language related to that graph to tie it together with the rest of that information.
And John, just if I could, that would be a little bit different direction than what was suggested, which was to remove that graphic regarding the high school diploma attainment. But if it was suitable to the working group, we thought it might be better to add a little bit of language just to introduce the chart, acknowledging the point that it's best to have some language that ties to each chart, just so that the full picture of educational attainment within the county could be portrayed within that section.
Any comments or questions about that?
I'm the one that made the comment. This is Jenny, and so either way is fine with me.
Okay. I'm fine with it, with moving it. Actually, should we have a motion on that?
That would be much appreciated, yes.
May I please have a motion to move forward on the changes to that? I forget the number of the table.
This is Rich, so moved.
Great, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. So moving on to the appendix, we did receive a question related to the homelessness data, just in reference to the drop that was there from 2018 to 2019. We don't necessarily know why that might be, but we did want to point out that it is a point in time count, which occurs in January each year, in which the Greater Virginia Peninsula Homelessness Consortium will count the sheltered and unsheltered population to the best of their ability. However, it is a population that does present challenges to count, and so that number will have some fluctuation year to year. We also received a question about our staff's population estimates as to whether we prepare those every 2 years or twice a year. And we do prepare those every 2 years and then present them annually with the Planning Commission's annual report. No action needed there, but just for the informational purposes. Was there any question as to those two items?
This is Jenny. Let me just clarify. What I wasn't questioning the drop in the point in time data. What I was questioning was that there's an oft quoted statistic that is the school system has 400 children in it who are deemed homeless. And it's hard to imagine that the point in time count could yield 37 homeless people if there are in fact 400 kids in the school system who are homeless. And I don't know how you square that circle, or I'm not suggesting that the point in time count is somehow done incorrectly. I'm just saying that those two numbers don't jive with one another, and maybe there could be some explanatory words put in. I don't know. With regard to the second point, I was only correcting the word biannual means twice a year. So I think you want to use biennial instead of biannual.
Right, we did receive, as you mentioned, 2 questions related to the homelessness. One specific to that drop, specific to those numbers, but we did also get your comment about comparing it to the school data. And likely that is ultimately their data sources, and the way they're able to conduct that, those counts is just different. Specific to the homelessness consortium's data, they are going to, for the sheltered population, going to their identified shelters and working with volunteers at those locations to count those populations. And so the school may also have access to other data as far as where children may be living, which would be included in their numbers. Going back to, for staff's population estimate, I just wanted to hopefully clarify, I hope I'm not being too confusing on it. We run that estimate twice a year, so it would be biannually. The Planning Commission and the board will see it each year through the annual report that is completed in the March timeframe.
Okay,
right.
sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, just to clarify. Yeah, so staff does work on estimates for the county population twice every year. Typically, we look at the beginning of the end of January and the end of June. The end of December and the end of June. So we always provide estimates 6 months twice every year.
Okay, thanks.
You're very welcome.
So those are clarified then, right? We don't need a motion for those.
No, I don't think we have. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think we need the social services and the school folks to get at what Jenny's talking about. I mean, I see it every time I get out on the road in the morning when the school bus is there and the kids coming out of the motels, which is where they're staying because they're homeless. And she's right. That number is significant. So, I mean, I don't care. I mean, let's at least find out what the truth is about that number.
Well, there are 2 sources as I understand it, and I'm getting a little out of my area, but the school does have an exact count of homeless children. I mean, pretty exact. And they include kids who live in motels as homeless. There are also children who started off the school year in James City County who are still homeless, but maybe living in a motel in York County, but are still attending our schools. And so they don't live here, and yet they're counted as school children, homeless school children. But that's different from the point in time. The point in time count is done by the social service agent, and they actually go out in the streets in known areas where homeless people are known to live, reside, and make a count, and actually do a physical head count. And as John said, this is a notoriously unreliable count, but there's not a good remedy for it. This is the way they've been doing it for years, and this is the number that I think that appears in the table that we're discussing.
I'm not so worried about the source of the numbers or questioning those sources as much as what that population represents and what services we either are or are not providing to that population, no matter where the count comes from. And right now, we're not even considering that homeless population of school children in this population description at all.
My understanding there might be a request for us to see if we could obtain the data from the school division regarding homeless students within their population, not so much to resolve any differences in the methodologies, but just to include that information within this document.
Yeah, Ellen, yes, that would be helpful. But what I'm trying to get at is that we use population figures within this section to draw attention to what we're doing about it. So if you go and look at the aging section of this population figures, and then all of a sudden you go and look at quality of life in some of the other sections, they talk about what the county is doing for those set of services based on that population need. And all I'm saying to you is if it's whatever the homeless population is, whatever you want to call it, there's a set of county services, and that's why I said the social service folks that are extended to that. And that's what this section is essentially about.
Would you care to make a motion?
Well, mine is based on the equity issue. And so we're using population figures to talk about equity. And homelessness is just one of those, and the social service is just another portion of it. The same thing with housing, same thing that I've gotten put in there for the recreation folks. So that's what my issue is wrapped into.
Okay, so to be specific, you would like a paragraph or two that deals specifically with what the county is doing to service the homeless population in James City County. Did I say that correctly?
That's correct, as well as there are other portions of our population that we're doing that same thing. That's why I've tried to wrap this into equity, because affordable housing is the same issue. Access
we have a section on affordable housing, on what we're doing for affordable housing, I think. But so I just want to keep this thing moving. You would like a paragraph on what the county is doing to...
Yes, and I provided that paragraph already.
Oh, you did? Okay. Would you mind reading it?
Yeah, although James City County's poverty rate is substantially lower than the national average of 15.6, it's nonetheless important to consider the needs of low-income residents and ensure that all neighborhoods have equal access to parks and recreation facilities. All residents have access to affordable housing and county services as part of this population piece. Talking about who we serve, and that becomes an equity issue.
But you didn't mention homeless in that paragraph. I thought
that's why I brought this portion up, because it doesn't have it in it, and it should.
Okay. Tell me, so you want that paragraph that you just read included in this?
Right, to include homelessness.
Okay. Any objection? How does everybody else feel about this? Any objections or staff? You okay with that?
This is Julie. I think I do have an objection because I'm not sure this is the place for us to say a policy if we don't have one. So perhaps it would be better expressed as some of what Frank said in terms of James City County needs to address the needs of the homeless population and then make it a GSA. Figure out what we're going to do.
And just to remind,
I'm
sorry for interrupting. I apologize.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Just as a reminder, we do have a GSA currently included in population that speaks to homelessness and addressing needs there. believe, Jose or John, correct me if I'm wrong, that was a new addition with this plan. So certainly we can
That's right.
flip over to the GSA document if you all want to review that language.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's move forward, and we'll come back to this when we hit the GSAs. Is that okay with you, Frank?
I just want language that's mirrored in the chapter that matches up with the GSA, which is why I brought this whole thing up. There ought to be some parallelism between the two.
Yeah, this is Julie, and I agree, but we should say something vague, like, Frank, would you read the beginning of your paragraph again?
Although James City County's poverty rate is substantially lower than the national average of 15.6, it's nonetheless important to consider the needs of lower income residents and ensure that all neighborhoods have equal,
Why don't we just say it's important for James City County to address the needs of the homeless? Leave it at that.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And that ties the two together, Julie.
Okay.
And that's a motion.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Great, thank you. John, back to you.
All right. Still on the appendix, we also received a question as far as the characteristics at a glance. And that's at the start of the appendix. The question was if we could use 2019 data instead of the currently used 2018 data. And at this point in the process, it would be difficult to update all that data to be consistent, but staff does plan to update the appendix post adoption of the comprehensive plan and do that on an annual basis to make it a living resource. Is there any questions as far as that goes?
Nope.
I'm sorry, this is Jenny. It just, to me, it looks bad, but okay. The data have been out there, and I think we should have the most recent available data in the comprehensive plan. But you can do what you can do, so.
Wait, and this is Ellen. We are looking forward to the release of the census data, and that will be an important set of data for sure.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate the timing didn't work out to where we were able to incorporate that. I believe it will be within the year that we'll have that data. It's just unfortunately not available now, but like John said, we'll be working to update this as a living document.
Okay, thank you.
Good deal. Next.
The next one would be, again, with poverty level, as far as we provide data in the appendix for the population, percentage of the population below the poverty level. The question was, what is the poverty level? Staff may need to do additional research on that matter and provide those answers to the working group at a later time. Ultimately, I believe the definition of the poverty level would actually change depending on if it's a single person, a family. So there may not be one set number that will be referenced for that poverty level.
This is Jenny. There is in the text, you give the example of a family of 4, and you give what the poverty level is. It's, I don't know, $25,000 or something. All I'm asking is to put that same reference into the appendix so that there's something that people can kind of grab onto to understand what are we talking about when we talk about the poverty level.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Staff can go back and review that as well.
Thank you.
With that, that would be all of the items that staff have wanted to discuss from the comments received before the meeting. Is there any other additional comments we might have at this point, or do we want to go to the GSAs to discuss anything on those?
I had sent in a 1 point on page 6 of the technical report and table 7 that looked like to me like a contradiction on a table. It begins with, while the white population has remained stable over the years, the Black African-American population has seen a slight decrease in numbers. But table 7 directly below that shows that African-American population actually increased from 6,460 in 1990 to 9,759 in 2018. So they actually increased in numbers. They did decrease in percentage, but the verbiage references numbers. And so anyway.
This is Ellen. I think we're absolutely glad to talk about any of those items, but just to make sure you knew we had seen that and weren't discounting it whatsoever. I think we had kind of put that within the realm of sort of language clarifications and grammatical improvements. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Okay, next up.
Sorry, Jack, I've got my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Frank. First time and I blew it already. Go ahead.
I'm going to try the equity issue again because we're getting ready to go in the GSAs. And as I went through the 1 through 5 GSA, they are replete with strategies and actions addressing equity for different population age groups that we have in there. But there is nothing in the front end of the chapter except for what Julie proposed now for the homelessness that addresses the population as a whole. And so there ought to be some parallel between those GSAs and something to be said about equity in the front end of this document.
Okay. Make a proposal.
I did provide that to the staff and got no feedback. And if they would like to take that language and massage it so it includes that, I'd be more than welcome to hear that.
I believe Mr. Holt responded to that.
Mr. Holt did. And what Mr. Holt talked about is how you would take those aspects to the other ends of the chapters, which I cited in there, whether it's the rec or whatever. And I understand that, you know, you're probably running out of staff time and good ideas, but that doesn't stop us from establishing that issue within this chapter. And if not here, where else?
I see Mr. Holt's, where it has, I guess it has to fit within our 5 themes. That could either go into quality of life. There's a theme for affordable workforce housing.
I'm not asking the staff to go back and jiggle what we've done so far. I'm only asking that if we're going to use GSAs, which we're going to go over, that talk about equity in the population, why wouldn't you want to say something about equity within the population chapter?
Well, I'll tell you what, sure. It's hard to talk about this, you know, without being more specific. So if you I didn't see your paragraph, Frank. I saw Paul's response to it, but what paragraph would you want included specifically?
What I'm suggesting is the staff take the paragraph that says, although James City County's poverty rate is substantially lower than the national average of 15.6, it's nonetheless important to consider the needs of lower income and to talk about it. I mean, and if they want to reword that so that it's a little bit more vague in the same way that Julie did, that's fine. But we ought to put it in here somewhere.
I thought we decided to do that.
She talked about homelessness, and I don't know that she said anything about this. Jack, if the staff can't come up with anything, fine.
Okay.
I don't want to waste any more time on this.
Shall we just ask the staff to work with this general idea and come up with a suggestion?
That's my preference.
Okay, let's do that and move on. And if staff can't come up with something a little bit better to this point. All righty. Let's move on to GSAs. John?
Sure. Staff didn't plan to go through each item individually, but certainly if the working group wanted to discuss through any of the actions, we'd be open to that.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a couple of small editorial comments?
You may, but I think we've decided that most, have you already submitted them, Jenny, or are they?
No, I did not. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay, far away.
Okay, this is all in PN1. To be honest, I wasn't sure what a mobile service stop was. Is that cell data? I mean, cell phone? Is that mobile service? Is it communications?
I don't know either.
Ms. Wortman, could you mention again what the number for that GSA was?
The reference is in PN 1.1, and there's another one further on down where it talks about mobile services.
Oh, thank you.
It's also in 1.2. And I didn't know what those were.
Yes. I think it's referring to not to do with like a cell phone, but to do with transportation stops. And I don't know if Jose or John want to jump in and add anything to that. We could look back at clarifying that language.
Thank you. And then in PN 1.3, you have make destinations more accessible by implementing these plans into the design of the new development proposals. Don't you mean integrating?
Yes, I think we could change that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I think it's fine.
Okay, thanks.
This is John. If I could just jump in on the last one for PN 1.1 regarding mobile services stops. That was language that came directly from the 2035 comprehensive plan, just to let you know. But like Ellen said, we will look back and make sure any clarification that is needed is made.
Yeah, I mean, if some of us don't know what it is, then probably could stand some clarification.
Okay. Anything else, Jenny?
In PN 2.1, do you have to say children and youth, or is it just youth?
I think it was meant to capture sort of the spectrum of younger folks, but certainly we could we could just replace it with youth, I believe.
Okay. And then in PN3, you have two strategies that talk about promoting things, promoting community healthcare centers and promoting affordable senior options. And I wasn't sure, to be honest, what that meant. It could be anything from telling people about it. I mean, I was just looking for a little more specificity, and that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. John, back to you.
All right, is there any other questions or discussion about the GSAs?
If I could jump in, and if that was it, I think it would be a great step to see if we could have a preliminary vote on this chapter, acknowledging all your feedback that you were just providing for us tonight.
That's the perfect thing to do. May I please have a motion to moving this chapter?
This is Julie, so move.
Thank you. Should we call the roll on something this big? Or just all in favor?
I think a voice vote would be great. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right. Thanks to the staff on this. This is a lot of work, I know. Okay, we'll move to Parks and Rec. Ms. Costello, or Ms. Costello?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. I will be presenting the Parks and Recreation chapter this afternoon. Next slide. The items for review today will be revisions to the technical report, the community guidance, and revisions to the goals, strategies, and actions. Next slide. Revisions to the technical report. Text has been added on the regional bikeways map. General information was added on online programming in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and inclusion of the goal statement within the introduction. Next slide. The third round of community input was held during the winter of 2021. Respondents were asked which types of natural lands, undeveloped lands, and open spaces they supported protecting. 99% supported protecting natural lands and open spaces, with approximately 84% supporting outdoor recreation as one of those types. Additional comments include the support for more biking and walking options, and the use of biking and walking networks to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Respondents were also asked their preferences for recreation and open space. Some of the items that were preferred: passive recreation was strongly preferred, with comments of increasing options to bike and hike. Recreational pockets scored high, with the needs for more green space, along with concerns of those who live outside the adjacent neighborhoods using the facilities. Active recreation also scored high, with comments being that it would provide community health benefits, along with concerns of already having enough of these facilities. Commentators on the central green recreation type were generally in favor, but questioned where it would be placed. Commentators on the fitness course, the lowest rated recreation type, mostly felt that these would be unused, though some saw an opportunity to improve public health. Next slide. The Parks and Recreation goal has been revised. Some strategies and actions have been reworded to provide clarity, and staff will add a GSA to the public facilities section on sea level rise in response to a PCWG comment. Next slide. The Parks and Recreation revised goal is to provide a range of recreational facilities and activities desired by the community that are affordable, accessible, and adequate in number, size, type, and geographic dispersion to accommodate the needs of all county residents and that promote personal growth, social development, and healthy lifestyles. Next slide. And now I'm open to any of your comments or questions. I did not receive any changes or questions, so it's up for discussion. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? I have just a couple, and I'm sorry I was late getting to this, but and they're pretty much cosmetic. Do you want me to just send them to you offline, Terry, or there are 4 or 5 of them?
Okay.
Okay, I'll just send them to you offline, and they don't change the meaning. They're just cosmetic.
Okay.
Okay, and no other questions or comments? Seeing none, we can move on to GSAs.
And I did not receive any comments or questions on the GSAs unless anybody wants to talk about any one specific.
Well, Frank, go ahead.
I just wanted to tell Terry, and I'm sorry to hear it's Miss Norton that she's left, but you all did a spectacular job, both on the front end of it and with the GSAs. And if there was ever an example for equity and the analysis that went into it in terms of the services, this is clearly an example for the other chapters. I mean, it was an excellent job, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Frank. I just have one question, and it has to do with the public facilities goal. And there's an and at the end, right in front of fiscal impacts, that I think we want to change to with. And I'll read it just for context. The public facilities goal reads, commit to and provide high quality of public facilities, including schools and public services, in a manner that balances demand for facilities and services and fiscal impacts. Isn't it the fact that we want to balance demand for facilities and services with fiscal impacts? Fiscal impacts being on one side and the demand for facilities and services on the other?
That's the public facilities goal. We're looking at the Parks and Recreation goal.
Oh, excuse me. Oh my gosh, I misread my own notes. I beg your pardon. Never mind, Terry.
I could take that into account for the next one because I'm in the public facilities.
I'm sorry. This is going to happen to you someday, Terry, in another 30 years or so. But anyway, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. So we're set with both the GSAs and the verbiage. May I please have a motion to move forward with this chapter as written?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we move forward with this chapter as written, as well as the GSAs.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. The introduction chapter, Ms. King?
Get myself unmuted here. Afternoon, everybody. I'm going to pull up on screen the introduction chapter. And this is the first time that we've introduced this to the Planning Commission Working Group. So I was thinking we could do just a pretty quick walkthrough of the document. And then I have a list of collected suggested revisions that I can share on screen. And if there are any additional ones, we can add them to that list. Okay, so again, this is the introduction chapter for the comprehensive plan. We did share this document with the CPT at their meeting last Monday and collected some feedback there that I'll share with you here in just a moment. So just a brief overview of what's in the document. Starts off with the first page, which is acknowledgements of all the different folks that have been involved in this effort. And then it's broken down into several sections and subsections. The first section is our plan for a resilient future, which talks about the purpose of the comprehensive plan, where we've been and where we are today, broken down into several different topics here in terms of community planning. And then we have our vision, where we are headed, our vision and goals, which includes the draft vision statement. That includes the 5 public input priorities and then the list of goals. And some of these might be kind of in flux since the different chapters are being reviewed and updated concurrently with this. And then there's a placeholder here for how we will achieve our vision, strategies, and actions. And that's to be input once the other chapters have been finalized. Then we have a section on engaging the Engage 2445 planning process that describes the process, talks about the leadership, Planning Commission Working Group and the CPT and the board, and then provides community engagement highlights for each of the main components, the citizen survey and each of the rounds of engagement, with another placeholder for the final implementation round once it goes through the public adoption process. There's also a section on the scenario planning to provide some detail on that and reference some materials that are in the plan appendix. There's a section on continual modeling. So we are acknowledging the ongoing tools that the county will have at its fingertips to be doing continuous modeling to help with decision-making ongoing. And then there's a section on implementation and evaluation of the comprehensive plan, linking the comp plan to the strategic plan. And then a little bit about evaluation and monitoring of the plan over time. And then finally, the last section is a guide to the plan, which includes the main components, the vision and the GSAs, and has, the organization of the plan, the various chapters and the key components of each of those chapters. So if it's okay with you, what I'd like to do is bring up a Word document and include those collected edits that have been provided, and we can walk through those and then take any additional ones if that works with you all. Pull this up. And we'll add those items here so you can see them. Does everybody see the Word document up in front of them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you again for those that have provided comments in addition to the CPT comments that we received last week. There was a document that Ms. Wortman provided some editorial comments, and I believe the Planning Commission Working Group was copied on that. And those were editorial in nature, and appreciate you sharing those, Ms. Wortman. We went through those and there didn't seem to be any that were really substantive changes. They were more editorial in nature. On page 2, we've got a couple of recommended changes. During our CPT meeting last week, there was the request for some additional narrative focused on COVID-19 impacts on the local economy, and also talking about related broadband needs and challenges, particularly with businesses and students. So that was a suggested adjustment to the kind of introduction of the plan. On that same page, there's a minor adjustment requested, more of a kind of typographical error, I think, here that we wanted to clean up. Page 3, there was fixing the contradiction regarding changes in sociodemographic profile. Sounds like it might be similar to the one of the topics you just discussed on the population chapter related to the proportion of different racial groups within the county. And so that's some language that we want to be consistent with throughout the plan. Page 4, we've got 2 suggested edits here. One is broadening the term transit, so that we're talking about not just transit. This is but to include it as like the full range of transportation options in its totality, and the inclusion of broadband. I believe this is related to some economic development language. Also on page 4, there was a suggestion, I believe, to add a missing A as part of that sentence. Page 6, enhanced quality of life. This is part of the vision statement. There was some suggested edits about including some additional language. And I believe, Mr. Haldeman, you might have shared this edit here. I did have a quick question about the preference of wanting to kind of include this list at the latter side of the sentence as opposed to the beginning, and wanted to make sure I interpreted that correctly.
I don't remember what I was thinking at the time, but his quality would be provided, all including. It looks okay the way it's written. Is that my change, or is that the way it was before?
So the red was the new in your email, and then this section was actually at the beginning of the sentence originally. So that it was shifted. So maybe this part, because it seems to be duplicative with the first list, so maybe this part goes away, but we shift this to the end. Maybe that was what you were wanting to accomplish. Okay.
I think.
And then on that same page, the economic development vision statement, there was a suggestion to add not only, and I think this is maybe another one where it just,
that's mine too. To take out the second not only.
Okay.
You're splitting the infinitive. That's all I was trying to avoid.
Thank you. Yes, we can do that. And then page 8, addition of paragraph describing the role of the satisfaction gaps and the iterative review of the chapters that was focused on how to close those gaps. So that is the page 8 is the section where we have a placeholder for the prioritized strategies and actions. And I believe this was Mr. Polster's request to have some language about the satisfaction gaps and their role in developing the chapters as part of that discussion. And then just a minor piece here in the acknowledgements page, we want to correct EPRPC's name. Are there any additional adjustments that you all would like to see made to the chapter? And I'm happy to bring it back up on screen if that's helpful.
Any, let me see if I get any hands here. I have one, and it's the one I brought up under Parks and Rec, but is actually public facilities, and that's changing and to with in the public facilities goal. And it would have to be, of course, in this introduction, but also in the public facilities goal itself, if everybody agrees with me. That's, and maybe I'm not understanding exactly what we're trying to say. Do you want me to repeat it, or?
No, does this capture it here? I was looking up the page that it was on, just so it can be clear.
Yeah.
I think it's
change and A and D to with right before fiscal impacts. Because I think what we're balancing is demand for facilities and service on the one hand with fiscal impacts on the other. I think that's the message that we're trying to convey. And with is a better word than and. In fact, and doesn't do it, because and makes them three of the same. Demand for facilities and services and fiscal impacts. There's no balancing there, in other words. Everybody okay with that? Or Frank?
Leanne, you may have missed the conversation, but on page 4, a community to manage growth and protection, community character. When I queried this with Ellen, she pointed to the current LU 1 that we have. And it struck me that that's out of the 2035 chart let me retract that. What that LU1 chart is, which are these figures, does not account for scenario B, where we are going to have more potential residential properties within the PSA. if I understand the way the modeling is going to work. And so the figures here, as well as LU1, are not correct until we plug in whatever the final pieces of scenario B is, or however that works. So, for example, my case was Eastern State, where you're going to add 3,000 plus and a whole bunch of townhouses and all the rest of it, all of it within the PSA, and that would void these numbers.
Gotcha. Okay, so really we need a placeholder here. It's not that we can change it today. We need to wait and see how that analysis
Whatever LU1 turns out, whatever LU1
Yeah.
turns out to be.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good. I did follow some of that language, and I apologize I didn't pick up on that aspect of scenario B not being included. So that does make sense to include that there. Tricky part of writing the intro/executive summary is the other things are being developed at the same time.
Well, you did a remarkable job. Remarkable job.
Thanks. Any other requests?
This is Julie. I'd like to go back to Jack's suggestion of changing and to with. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I don't know if I need to make a motion for that effect.
And Mr. Haldeman, I guess I'll defer to you. I don't know if you wanted to go through these all together to approve them all together, if we want to do them individually, whatever you think makes sense.
I didn't hear a lot of, oh, excuse me. Vlad, let's hear from you, please.
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Just that last comment from Mr. Polster, just, I guess, point of clarification, because he was asking, would these numbers change when scenario B is remodeled with the latest Planning Commission Working Group, I guess, decisions on the land use applications. And I guess the distinction is capacity versus scenario planning. So I don't think it would change the capacity of anything. The scenario B or the leave behind model is just looking at a snapshot in time of say 25 years in the future, and a increment of growth that one could assume in that 25 years. It may be more, maybe less, but again, it's just a modeling exercise, and it doesn't deal with capacity. So I don't think the two are related, if that makes sense, Mr. Polster.
Well, it may. It just that I think LU1 is going to change no matter what happens here, because you've done something to the PSA that's different from 2035. And whether it was the model that caused it or not, there's going to be a land use change within the PSA. And it ought to be reflected in LU1. And whether it ends up in this paragraph or not, it's the LU1 chart that I'm most concerned about, because that tells us what the capacity is that we have. And we started this exercise to try to get to 120,000 folks. And the LU1 right now gives us 80% of that. So there's got to be a delta between what this modeling effort has and where we were in 2035.
This is Ellen. So yeah, for LU1, it is an analysis of the future land use map, and there's a bunch of different components to it, but certainly one component is land that's designated a certain way, but maybe not developed yet. And as you accurately point out, if there's changes to what the designations are, that would affect the numbers there within the chart.
Exactly, which is why some of these numbers are rolled up in this paragraph for both developed and not developed.
This Vlad,
anyhow,
that makes sense.
that's
to
my
me.
point.
You're
That was
changing
it.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement too. Sorry for the interruption.
Is it, I didn't hear any other comments. Is it everybody's feeling that we can go ahead and approve these in mass rather than one at a time? Oh, Vlad, do you still have something, or is your hand just up?
Oh, sorry, I'll take it down.
It's okay.
This is
Chairman,
Rich.
I'll make a motion that we approve in mass and with the changes that are going to take place based on updates.
Great, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all. Where are we here? I I think that's it for the introduction chapter. Leanne,
Yes.
anything further?
No, that's it. Thank you. We'll be making those adjustments and coordinating with the other drafters of the chapters.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other items for discussion? Hearing none, and aspiring for a record short PCW working group session, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
This is Rich, so moved. Nice job, Mr. Chairman.
Good job, Jack.
I got an easy
precedent here.
I'll await my trophy here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Good discussion, and stay safe. We'll see most of you on
Take
Wednesday.
care, everybody.